Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Boy, am I excited for our podcast today. Before I introduce you to our guest, here's a quote I picked just for this episode. It is far better to be alone than to be in bad company. George Washington. Our guest today, more than a coach, more than a mentor, he's a role model in real estate. Over 40 years successfully helping those with their buyers and sellers needs, but even more deeply than that, as an advisor, an accountability partner to those that actually do that every single day. I've had the pleasure of knowing Dave Fanale for years and years and years, been a supporter of the Culture Matters since I could, remember. And I'm fine. I'm, years, and I'm so excited to share him with all of you. He's someone that keeps it real, is authentic, and has experience in investing in real estate. Ran a brokerage for 21 years and 9 months or something like that, and it's a great person. So thanks for coming on the Culture Matters podcast, my friend.
You're welcome, man. I'm really glad to be here. This is really exciting. I mean, it's an honor, honestly, an honor and a privilege. So thank you so much for inviting me on the broadcast.
Where did we mess up in 2023? That's the first question I have for, meaning the people that are listening to this that may not be uh, in the level of success that they want. Where were they likely not accountable? Because you're big on accountability.
So
And
the accountability thing goes back forever. It goes back to when, I mean, if we're talking in the real estate business, Jay, it actually goes back, it's got to go back 30 some years or whatever, when people started thinking more about what their business looked like. And when we're talking about brokerages, they cared more about, oh, I've got 10 people, well, I've got 15, or I've got 20. Somewhere in the 80s, it turned into a numbers game. It still is a numbers game, but not that way, right? And this full evolution of the business through COVID in the 2020s to 21, 22, 23 is basically you've seen the quick rise of a different type of company and other companies trying to copy them. I'm an EXP agent. I have no problem mentioning that. I am proud of it. It is the only company in the world that is based on collaboration and helping others succeed first rather than yourself. And that's the difference right there, Jay. To answer your question and to be complete, is it's not a numbers company. It's a quality company. It's a collaborative company. There are companies, large companies. I think the biggest company in the world, their managers and team leaders get paid based on number of agents, not amount of production or commission brought in. Not that, I mean, numbers are nice. I mean, to say that you've got 88, 89,000 agents worldwide, if you think about it, that's not a big number. If you think about it in the United States, 1.5 million realtors, which probably as of next week will probably be 1.2 because of everything that's going on over the last couple of years, right? So where we have really lost it was 30, 40 years ago when we went to a numbers game. Over the last 5 years, where we've lost it is the lack of barrier to entry in the business, which has always been an issue. And because, you have a high school diploma and it's great, you can be a real estate agent. There's no apprenticeship as there is an appraisal. There's no apprenticeship as there is in all other contracts. I mean, look at contractors, right? To build houses. They've got to have an apprenticeship. They got to have this, that, and the other thing. New Jersey I'm in the state of New Jersey. New Jersey's starting to finally pass laws about, what you need to be a licensed contractor. Before it was just register, right? The real estate business, the greatest business ever, where you really can set your own hours and set as much money as you want to make. That's the problem, is that watch the people doing really well and we work on the tip of the iceberg of what they're doing. So to answer your question and to complete full circle is the lack of training and emphasis on it over the last few years has brought us to a point where people really don't understand how to work in this business, how to really care about people, where it's all about, I want your listing rather than tell me, what's bringing you to sell your home? What's important to you in the sale of your home? Different questions where we should be a question-based business, but we're a statement-based business, which is where it hurts. Because when you make a statement, it's about the person talking. When you ask questions, it's about the other. So that's in a long nutshell, that's the answer.
Are real estate transactions still happening in 2024?
Are real estate transactions still happening in 2024?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's the deal, man. People will always need a place to live. There'll always be reasons that will have nothing to do with interest rate. Always reasons that have nothing to do with inventory. People are still going to buy and sell homes. I did get into business. People say this doesn't matter anymore, but when I first really heavily got into business, interest rates were 18 to 20%. People still bought homes. We figured out ways to do it. We figured out ways to be creative in our financing. And it's one of the things that, I'll give you an example. I just did a transaction myself where I actually got seller financing. I created the entire transaction. It was very simple. It really was. And 30 years ago, it was simple then. I had trouble with everybody involved in the transaction really understanding, because it was very simple. It was interest rate. It was a straight interest rate. It was this, it was that. We did this in the 80s because in the late 80s, we had no choice. That's how we made deals. Because in the late 80s, it was bad, right? 90s.
What was going on then?
So, not a lot of people will really relate to this simply because the 80s were the 80s and we had a lot of problems with inflation in the late 70s and the beginning of the 80s. What happened was that Ronald Reagan became president and he came out with this great program called the Accelerated Cost Recovery System, ACRS. And basically, instead of depreciating your property over 45 years, you could depreciate it over 15 years and take a huge percentage in the beginning. That stimulated our economy with commercial real estate, which in turn filtered out to residential real estate. And because of greed and everything else, it got out of hand. And, we have an expression, shit hit the fan in the late 80s. So businesses, there were foreclosures like crazy, that so much there was this corporation built by the government called the Resolution Trust Corporation. And they had a book about 2 inches thick for the state of New Jersey, the number of foreclosures and how you can register to go buy them. So it's really interesting how we had the problem in the 2000s. And then over the last 2 years, the differences are vast. The differences, same kind of idea though, the same kind of trepidation, let's say. I don't want to use the word panic because there's really no panic in either time, but there's still the same fear of, like now it's like, okay, well, I refinanced in 20 and 21. Why would I want to get rid of my interest rate to sell, even though I want to sell now? So to say that what's going to happen in 2024, my feeling is that interest rates are going to go down because the government will finally realize that real estate does make the world go round. So there's going to be business. There's going to be more business in 24 than there was in 23. And the real estate agents will rise to the top. This has nothing to do with the lawsuits out there with the Department of Justice and all that other stuff.
The types of characteristics of the most successful professionals that you interact with,
Right.
What are they? The characteristics that make them who they are, right? The cream of the crop.
They're committed to a discipline and principles, plain and simple. If you're a principled person where you say, I'm going to do this and do that, that means that you have integrity. So I've just used some really big words there: integrity, principles, discipline, commitment. And to have someone help you stick to those 4 ideals will partner with all 4 of those ideals. It is called accountability. Accountability from a coach, from a mentor, from a friend, from a relative. I don't care what you say. Accountability, I've learned this from my coaches over the years. Accountability is the highest form of love that you can ever have. right? It's also the hardest form of love. As a coach, as a mentor, I always tell people, look, I'm not for everybody. So you really need to understand what I'm telling you, I'm going to say and what I'm going to do. I will be very critical of things you do that you shouldn't do. I will be very critical, not critical, but the accountability person that you need to say, why are you doing that? Why aren't you doing that? But I'm not going to say more or less, I'm not going to really say why. I'm going to say, this is what you need to do. What's the reason behind it? For instance, okay, so what did you commit to this week? I committed to A, B, and C. Did you fulfill those commitments? No, I did not. What held you back? That's a very important question. What held you back from the commitments? For all intents and purposes, could you have fulfilled your commitments this week? Right? The answer will be yes. And the last question is going to be really simple. Will you recommit to those commitments that you didn't achieve last week to achieve this week? So on and so forth. So accountability is the number one thing. And anyone who's going to be a principled person and not look for the quick fix or the quick scheme will do fine.
How do you define integrity?
You do what you say you're going to do. For instance, Jay, this podcast, right? You reached out to me very early in the morning today about moving the time a little bit, right? You didn't wait till the last minute. You didn't wait till all that, right? You've been following up with me when we scheduled this. Pure integrity of like, hey, this is what I've got going on. And the most important part of integrity for me is this little thing called no excuses. All right. What do I mean by that? So I'll tell you a quick story when I made my last excuse, or I decided not to make my last excuse. It's probably about 10 years ago. And I was late for a meeting that I forgot about. I was on this executive committee of this board of directors. It was my first time. It was January. I forgot about it. I thought I was going to the other meeting. I get a phone call at 8:30. I'm supposed to be there at 8:30. Dave, you coming? I said, holy shit. I jump in my car. They're 20 minutes late. And I'm thinking all the way there, okay, I can say that I had trouble with a tenant. I could say that this. And I said, you know what? Screw that. You forgot. Apologize and move on. When I walked into the meeting, I said, I'm so sorry. I am late. I did forget. Didn't have it on my calendar. Please forgive me. So if you're not going to make excuses, if you're going to own what you're doing, that's a great step.
What do they say?
They accepted it and said, let's go. Here's a quick recap of what you missed. That's all. Never heard about it again. 6 people in this room. I was late. I just apologized, did not make an excuse. Most people in that case, maybe they have an excuse. Maybe I forgot is
What
not
are the
what they're ashamed of.
What are the long-term consequences of the excuse in your mind?
That it just never stops. You rationalize the bullshit in your life, right? You can never rationalize the bullshit in your life because but if it's, you know what? If it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's a duck. If it's bullshit, it's bullshit. Serious.
How do you define principles?
Hey man, what I stand for, what I stand for, principles, what I stand for. What do I stand for? I mean, I believe that, look, I do a lot of things ritualistically every day. And to me, that's a principle for me. You know, I grew up the youngest of 8, and people say, oh, you were the baby. Do I look like a baby to you?
Wow. Yeah.
So I grew up the youngest of 8 and there's a lot of stuff that comes with that, man. And I just really recently realized it. So I work on myself the first part of every day. I mean,
What's that look like?
So when I say ritualistic and I say ritual, my ritual is I have 2 different sets, right? So weekdays, it's really simple. I'm up at 4:15. I am at the gym, walking in the door at 5 a.m. and I do my workout. And that is, I will never go to the gym and go through the motions. I have to push. I am not one of the oldest people there. Um,
Wow.
the age range is young to old. I mean, really, and this is 5 a.m. too. So I put in a really good workout, shower, dressed, out. I'm out by 6:45, and I'm at wherever I'm going for that day within 15 to 20 minutes. And then I do my readings. I read from several daily books. One of them is the Daily Stoic, right? One is Believe in Yourself. These are two of the books. One is about discipline, and the other one is about love. And those are the four books I read from every day. After that, I write down what's in my head. I write down what I'm grateful for, and I write a bunch of affirmations, and I say them out loud. Um, then I get started with my day. That is my ritual. That is those are tells me what my principles are for the day and how I move forward. You know what? I've had a lot of help in coming to this realization. And I'm a champion for those people that help me along the way.
What is the value of gratitude?
Hey man, you know what? The value of gratitude is that it really it really humbles you. I mean, let me just get to one other thing first before
Sure. Yeah, no rush.
a lot of people, a lot of people hope and pray. Um, and they say, well, you know, my prayers and my hopes never get answered. And I want to say that you're full of it because your problem is that you're not listening or looking for the answers.
Hmm.
But this old joke where this guy is praying every day is God, I want to win the lottery. Please help me win the lottery. Every day he goes to church. He says the same prayer. After about a month and a half, 2 months, God comes down and says, hey man, could you help me out? Could you buy a ticket? So the point is that if you want something, if you really are going to have hope and have faith, you have to be able to do two things. Number one, be open to the suggestion or be open to something that comes in front of you, and then actually take action. If you're not going to take action and all you're going to do is hope and dream and pray, don't waste your time, because no one's going to want to help you if you don't want to help yourself, right? Which is kind of how I kind of coach. If you don't want to, if you're just going to go through the motions, I'm not interested in working with you. If you're going to like really go at it, and you know, I'm a different kind of guy. I'm a different kind of person. I'm very blunt in the way I treat people, but I don't treat them nastily. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean
Yeah.
it that way. What I mean is, you tell me you want something, I'm going to help you get there. Plain and simple.
Why do people hire coaches?
Well, they want to get better, right? So, I mean, people say that one of the best coaches in the NFL is Bill Belichick, right? So you look at what he's done over his career. I don't mean the last couple of years, you know, that's going to happen. Um, Anybody that came and played for him or played in his team, he has a team of coaches, and his coaches were to take their existing skills and make them better. There's a difference between a coach, trainer, and a mentor. A coach is going to take what you've already know, give you some other stuff. Yes, he'll do some training and some mentoring as well, but he's going to take what you already know and make you better at it. You know, I mean, there's so many examples in professional sports. You know, let's look at this pitching coach for the New York Yankees, Matt Blake. When he came on, who the hell's this guy? He never pitched, but they've always had the best bullpen in the major leagues over the last few years since he's been there, right? I mentioned Bill Belichick. Look at Mike Tomlin from the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's going to have he has not had a losing season ever. That's coaching, right? They listen, right? A lot of coaches aren't that good. I mean, some people will say that the Jets coaching staff sucks. I don't know, because I really don't follow it that much. I just know over the years, you know, the qualities of a good coach are just someone that's going to help you build what you already have, and also give you certain ideas. But the coach is never giving you answers. He's asking you questions. So because the best way to learn is to answer the questions yourself.
Why do you think that is?
It just is, man. I mean, if you can figure out something yourself
Hmm.
with the support of a coach, I mean, this is in business, in real estate. I mean, I'm not talking about technique on the football field or on the basketball court. Technique is one thing. Getting you to realize your potential, getting getting you to realize what you're able to do, is a great coach is going to bring it out of you. If you have the ability, or you can learn the ability, then you're coachable. I mean, my trainer says to me to do something when I'm lifting something. He says, "You're coachable." I said, "Yeah, I know." Because why did I hire you? A lot of people, look, I can go on and talk about the real estate business forever. We can talk about how I think I think the coaching system of the big coaches in the world of real estate, I think their systems are broken. I can tell you that there's a lot of little coaches like me that doing great, that are really fantastic. And I can name several of them, but I know for me,
Wow.
I don't have that big name. I don't have that big swag that everybody else has. And I don't care. I'm to a point where, if you want me to help you, I'm helping you, but these are my parameters.
How would I know, or a listener recognize that they lack discipline?
How do I know if they lack discipline?
Like how could they figure it, right?
Making
Like, oh,
excuses.
I clearly lack discipline.
Making excuses. I'll give you an example. So I believe in a certain framework of doing the real estate business. That framework involves role play, making contacts, setting appointments, and doing social media engagement. So it's basically, 30 minutes of role play, 2 hours of phone work, and an hour of social engagement. Where you don't have the discipline and you don't have the commitment is when you're in that time, you allow yourself to be distracted with a buyer's calling you with a question, an attorney's calling you with a question, or a lead's coming in that you can talk to later on your lead generating system. Lead generating is one thing. That's what we're doing with appointment setting. You're not taking the calls, you're making the calls. So if you allow yourself to take those, oh yeah, but I have to, it's my buyer, we're going to put in an offer. Can wait till later. It's the same agent that takes a call at 11 o'clock at night. What are you doing that for? Right? You set yourself up for failure when you do that. You don't set your own boundaries. You don't, you're allowing yourself to be distracted because you don't want to do something that's difficult. I'm not saying making calls is easy. I'm not saying that lead generation is easy. Some of it can be if you do it the right way. You cannot go after like 25 million things at once. You've got to concentrate on one thing. There's a book out there called The One Thing. And guess what? Live by that, you'll be completely successful. The way to be disciplined, I'll give you a little trick, right? So a lot of people have a problem with distraction. I do. I'm going to be the first to tell you. I can, squirrel, I'm there, I mean, it's easy, But the best way to do this is to take, I don't know, when you get started in your day, take a pad of paper, or you can have a book. Book is probably best because you can save your notes. And when you think of something, you write it down. The moment you write it down, it is now out of your head. It's written down so you can't forget it. And when you finish your work, your lead gen, you go on to do that. You go on to work on that. But honestly, those are the secret to success, aside from, the scripts and talk tracks. People want to talk about scripts. I want to talk about talk tracks, right? But aside from the role play, the lead gen appointment setting time, and the social media engagement time, which is also appointment setting time, you can do everything else later.
What's a talk track?
So people talk about scripts. There's scripts and dialogues, okay? I'm a scripted individual. I understand how scripts work, but you can get off track with scripts, or you can get you can stay on track, which could be the worst thing to stay on track with a script. You've got it set in front of you. You're reading all the questions. You're going through it. You're probably not doing it right if you stick to them. A talk track is, okay, so they start talking about their needs and desires. It's a way to build rapport. And you're going to build rapport by being personal, by being integral with what they need, what their situation is. A lot of agents will call, let's say they'll call a for sale by owner, and they'll say, okay, well, I see you're selling your house on your own. When are you gonna sign an agent to sell your house? Okay, okay. So are you, I can sell your home really quickly and at a high price. What time can I come and meet you? Well, basically, that's a script that honestly doesn't work.
Yeah, don't you think I got a real important, I'm really called to ask you this question. By asking that question, if everybody has the same script, even if I'm doing it, don't you think it could actually invert? Like, meaning, I'm curious. You're smiling now. You're laughing. Like, I'm thinking, if we're all saying the same thing, could that potentially work against us, or is it deeper than that? You could give me some.
That's a really great question, because
Guidance on that.
It's a skill, and it's something that sometimes you have or you don't have, right? So I give you a script. I'll give you the script and tell you to call 10 for sale by owners. You give me the same script. I'll use the same script.
Yeah.
You call them first. I'll call them second. Ask the same questions. I'm going to talk like they're not even going to think they're the same questions.
And is that because of your tonality and all the things that are happening that are sending signals below the awareness?
I'm doing something that's really important that a lot of agents don't do at the same time. They're most agents, and I mean, I say this categorically, and it's not everyone, but a lot of agents will go by the script. They'll read the script, they'll go through it. And one of the biggest mistakes they make is they're reading the script, which is not a bad thing, but they're reading it in a different tone. They're sounding salesy, they're sounding cheesy, and they have what we call commission breath. I'm going to ask it mirroring tone, I'm standing up like this podcast. I'm standing up. When I do a broadcast and I do a podcast, I stand up. When I'm on the phone, I stand up, right? Why? My energy is flowing up and down. My energy cannot be cut off at my knees, at my waist. My energy is flowing up and down. I move around a lot. When I do my broadcast, I'm standing up like this as well. I also, when there's a break, I'm also jumping around getting energy, right? I'm full of energy. I'm full of passion. And sometimes that can work against people, because when they're not, when they're worried, when they're trying to make too much of an impression, they're too pushy. If you're just trying to have a conversation with care and love, that's the difference. You and I can see the same script. Mine's basically going to come off with care and love, because it's coming out of my voice and it's coming from my heart, because I actually do care if I can help them. Now, it's the same as coaching. I'm not for everybody, and I'll tell them that. I mean, I'm not sure if you're interested in talking to me or not, but look, there's some things that you've said that we can actually discuss. Like, you're concerned about times of, the people calling you and all this other stuff. Well, I'm glad to help you. So talk to me more about that, right? I never ask why. I never use that word. If you use that word, it's a negative word. I never use the word but. That's a negative word, right? So it's all a matter of how you use your language, how you talk. A talk track is just that. If we're going down the road and we get off the road by starting to talk about techniques and strategies that I'm going to use to sell your home, unless they ask me, it's not something I'm going to talk about. But then again, here's the most important part of that phone call, Jay, is that I just want to be able to see if it makes sense for us and me to come over and actually see your house. Because if you're not ready, why would I push you for an appointment? Yes, I do call 2 hours. I do call it appointment setting, right? Because I want to get appointments, because I want to help people. I also want to make money. It's my job. But The talk track is based on what they're talking about, what I want to talk about. If they ask me how I can help them, then I'm going to tell them. But I'm going to ask more questions than I am going to make statements. Because if I'm making statements, it's about me. If I'm asking questions about them, and I want to know more about them. I want to know as much about them before I walk in their door physically as I can. I want to know as much about them as I possibly can. And that's where a talk track comes in. I'm not using a script. I'm using the dialogue that we're having, such as you and I. If you and I went out to dinner, we would get on a topic, and that would be my talk track. Just like you're asking me questions now, I've used words like principle and commitment and stuff. That's my talk track, right? For my agents, for my clients, for my mentors and my students, right? That's my talk track, because I want them to understand that all they have to do, and it's really hard, all they have to do is commit and be disciplined to what they commit to. It's the same thing at a talk track. I want to be disciplined and committed to the person I'm talking to. And my talk track has to be relative to them, not to me. That's where the talk track comes in. I don't know if I complicated it at all, but that's what it is.
Where does presence and does presence have to intention have to do with that formula?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
How intentional do I have to be able to implement a talk track? Does that have any relationship with intention, you think, of the individual?
Your intention must be
intentionality. Is it level of intention behind it?
I mean, look,
or would you call it something else?
It's really hard to explain to someone you do not make calls with the intention of making money. That's really hard to explain. I have trouble explaining it. All I know is that and it's all about your ritual too. It work into what you're talking about in your affirmations. I am going to help someone today. I help a lot of people. Those are two affirmations that I write every day. So when I get up, we talked about gratitude. I have finally gotten to a point where where I'm mentally, and I'm in a good state where I can go to bed in gratitude, go to sleep in gratitude, wake up in gratitude, right? And it doesn't matter what the day was like. I'm grateful I was able to have the day I had. I'm alive. And then now let me help somebody else. That's just me. I've always said I just want to help people. And it's a phrase that can come back to hurt me too. But I don't care. My objective in life is to help as many people as I can.
Do you believe is there any connection between that philosophy and the fact that you studied political science, sociology in school? Because you did, right?
No, I don't. I honestly, I do not think that there's a connection for me there. My connection is just growing up, as I said, being the youngest of 8 comes with a lot of things. One of them, I always wanted to make my mom happy. Right. When I was a little kid, I wanted her to be happy. I wanted her to smile. So I think that's, for me personally, it's rooted there. And there's no question about that.
Did you dream of becoming a real estate professional, or was there when you were a little kid, around your bed, there was real estate pictures of $1 million real estate agent?
So my real estate career is a very interesting path.
Glenn Ross,
No. So I said the youngest of 8, right? My dad was a dentist. Wow. My dad was a dentist, but his hobby was real estate.
Wow.
So when I went to college, I have 2 brothers, older brothers, of course, they're older brothers, that are physicians, they're doctors. And my dad wanted someone to follow in his footsteps to be a dentist. And honestly, Jay, I say this a lot to everybody, and I say it jokingly, but I say it really seriously. I never wanted to put my hand in anybody's mouth.
Yeah.
Never thought about it. Never wanted to do it. So it's like, I remember first semester sophomore year, he's pushing me about, science classes and, you're not pre-dental. And so I realized, what, how do I, get around that? So I became an urban planning major. which was
Wow.
science, urban planning. That's real estate. And that's how I get into real estate. I graduate school with an urban planning degree, a double major, political science, urban planning, and couldn't get a job right away. Didn't have a job. My dad was actually building a 40-unit building in Hasbrook Heights, and he needed some help. The help he needed was, he needed a gopher, he needed a cleaner, he needed, a guy who did all the shit that nobody else would do. That was me.
Wow.
From that, a love of building and construction and fixing things came to me. I mean, I always tried to do different things. Always tried to fix things. I mean, my first bike was like I think a 3 or 4 time hand me down, right? So I always polished it up, made it look as good as it could. I always tried to make things look better. So I always had this thing in me that I wanted to, let's say, build whatever you want to look at, right? So when it comes to a house, when it comes to building and contracting, construction, developing, and all that stuff, I learned it literally from the ground up. So I got this love for building, and my dad was in real estate. So after I actually did get a planning job for a few years, couple of years, 2 years actually, in New Jersey, and then I started working for him full time, managing properties, still doing all the grunt work that you can think of. I learned a lot from him. He taught me an awful lot, taught me more than anything else, work ethic. And getting stuff done, I'm good at it. It's just, it took a discipline in me. And let's put it this way. I mean, procrastination, I'm really good at that too. And I've learned how to get around that. It's just, once I get started on a project, I'm not going to stop. And sometimes I do go too fast, as I've been told.
Were your grandparents entrepreneurs too?
So my grandparents, yes, my grandparents came over in 1912 from a little town in Sicily called Marineo,
Wow.
which I'm actually going to go visit next year. And they come over in a boat. They had 5 children that died in Sicily. And they came over in a boat and says, anything's got to be better than this. So they came over, they came in 1912 to Elizabeth Street in New York City. My dad was born in 1915. They bought a piece of property and built a 3-story building, which in Lodi, New Jersey, corner of Passaic and First Street, still there. They had a little grocery store. My grandfather was, jack of all trades. He was a glazer. They ran a grocery store. He had a push cart both in summer and in winter. And there's hills all in Lodi, New Jersey, where they went to. And just, so as an entrepreneur, yes, he always, said you work for yourself and you do the best you can for your family,
Wow.
family first. My uncle was a glazer. He was a glass guy, right? My other uncle was an efficiency expert. So, I mean, that's where the work ethic came from, was my grandfather, grandmother on my dad's side.
Commitment. How would we define that in your view? Commitment.
So, so let me take the quick route to that, which is I'll call it the 4 C's, right? The 4 C's are commitments, number 1. So commitment is something you have to decide you're going to do. You make a decision. How I define the word decision, decide, is I'll give you a little example, right? So decide is to kill off, CIDE. We've all heard the word homicide. Pesticide is to kill off. You mean to make a decision what you're going to do, a commitment. That commitment is all encompassing. An example of commitment, example of making a decision and deciding. Jay, have you ever been to a restaurant?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever looked at the menu and said, well, and there's more than one thing you like on it,
Yeah.
right? And you finally say, you know what? I'll do the chicken parm. Whatever, I just picked that out of my head. You have decided against the other things, right? So that steak or that veal chop or that seafood, whatever it was, you're not going to have. So they serve you your salad or whatever it is, whatever you ordered or whatever. And you figure it's about time for the dinner to come out. And you start watching the servers come out of the kitchen or whatever the area is. And when you look at that tray, you're looking for your chicken parm. You're not looking for a steak. You're not looking for seafood. You're looking for that chicken parm because you decided against everything else and you're focused on that chicken parm that you can't wait to come to your table because you got a flavor for it. Your mouth started watering for it, right? That's what it's called to decide. That's an example of deciding. So when you make that commitment, you've made a decision. Once you make that decision, that commitment, you reach what's called capacity, courage. Courage is first. You now have the courage to do the action steps that you have to put forth in order to fulfill that commitment. That is, okay, I'm committing to 2 hours of phone calls. I'm committing to 2 hours of appointment setting. And you start doing it. Once you start doing it, there's something that happens that you get more comfortable with it, which means you're building the next C, capacity. You're building capacity to do it, which means you can do more. You're going to figure out a way to scale within yourself. That's also going to make you open to coaching, to suggestion, to accountability, to your principles. Once you do the commitment, the courage to capacity, and it's all working, the last C, which is the one that really puts you over the top, is confidence. You now have the confidence where those three things before, they're just, that's what it is. That's what it's all about. That's all it is. So commitment to the courage, to the capacity, to confidence. That's what commitment is. That's how you build a business, how you build a life.
What was your inspiration behind starting your brokerage in 96?
So as I said to you, I'm youngest of 8, worked for my dad. The idea was to give me a life. I realized enough that I needed a life after working with my dad, right? Because my dad was, in 96, my dad was
71?
81, 81.
81.
81, right. Yeah, 81. And I realized that, man, that's amazing. This man lived to be 90 and he had still had his dental practice in his 80s. Right. So anyway, I knew I needed a business after that, and I needed to build myself my own business. So the Century 21 franchise that I bought into was a tenant. And the woman had a desire to sell the business. To me, it was perfect. They were in one of our buildings. I knew what their business model was. I understood it. I had never run anything like that before, but I was a businessman and an entrepreneur. So I purchased the business in 1996, September 16, 1996. And began to learn a lot about personalities in the real estate business, about personalities that a lot of people in the real estate business don't like to be pushed. I learned it the hard way. I probably had 80% turnover in the first 3 years of my business. And still the business kept growing. And so I knew I needed something else. And my dad passed in 2005 and we had to clean up the estate. Of course, my dad had an awful lot of real estate that I managed, that I built for him, I built for my family. And so we took care of that. We had to sell a lot of the properties. I bought one of them. And so I knew that I had to have an after, because I was still a young man, still am. So that's why I got into the brokerage business. Turned out to be very fruitful for me. I was able to use a lot of the connections over the years, in the first, 16, 17 years of my career, I had a lot of connections from my days working for planning boards, working for others, and the reputation I had built in the business, in banks, et cetera. So I was able to use it all.
You think is real estate investing a path to wealth?
100%. 100%. It is probably in my opinion, yes, that I am biased, real estate investing is the #1 path to health. Here's the thing. If you're in your 20s and you've got a good job and you've got a couple of dollars, there's a manner in which you can take whatever you're doing, take your good reputation as far as financial, and go forth, and in 3 years have 3 properties and $3 to $4 million worth of real estate without even working hard. There's a simple method to do it. It's really easy. But there's not anybody out there. There are companies out there teaching it. The company I learned it from, right? It's called The Velocity of Money. I'm putting that out there. But Frank Dippold is the guy's name. It's only fair. I learned it from him. I'm telling you what his name is, but I can help you do it too. It's really simple. You want to invest in real estate? I got a simple methodology. If you're willing to move a couple of years in a row, I can help you out. I can make you do it, help you do it, and get you to a point where you own $3 to $4 million worth of real estate in a matter of 3 to 5 years. That will build you generational wealth because it's going to you can keep doubling it.
Where do people go wrong where they miss out on that long-term wealth building with it?
They're looking for the home run in the grand slam right away. They're not looking, they want to start in the major leagues. They don't want to start in the minors. Okay. They're looking for the most successful, say flippers, investors are ones that they're looking at anywhere from 5 to 25 deals before they even pull the trigger on one. You know, I mean, for me, it's very rare that if I'm going to invest in something, it's very rare that I'll buy the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I look at. It's not that it has to be perfect. It just has to fit in my own parameters of investing. That's all.
In closing, 100% to increase our listeners' ability to succeed in 2024. You wake up tomorrow and you have the remote, to guide their behaviors and their actions. What are you doing? You wake up tomorrow, you're them.
For 24 to be what they want it to be?
Yeah.
Sure, easy. I'm jumping out of bed. I'm jumping out of bed. I am not getting out of bed. I'm jumping out of bed. I'm jumping out of bed with a smile, giving gratitude for what I've got to do. Even though I might have to do shit that I don't like, but I'm jumping out of bed to do it. Decide where you want to be in 12 months, reverse engineer it, and start tomorrow with the first day. There's one way to kill procrastination. There's one way to kill indecisiveness. There's one way to kill a bad mood: taking action. If you want to do really well, you'll take action. If you want to do better than that, you'll take massive action. But just don't take action for action's sake. Take action that is thought out and is proven to get you where you want to go. Plain and simple. You're going to take action. You're going to work back. You might have a 3-year goal. You might have a 5-year goal. Go 5, 3, 1, quarterly, monthly, weekly, and bring that back to every day. That's how you will, and it will start showing for you in 2 to 4 months, without question, maybe sooner. And I follow this I follow this myself.